Today's Keys to the Commonwealth episode is brought to you by Nova Insurance. Are you a business owner or property manager in Kentucky or the surrounding states? Protecting your investment has never been more crucial. Nova Insurance specializes in commercial risk advising for your commercial business, as well as your commercial real estate and rental properties. With personalized service and expert advice, Nova Insurance ensures you are covered from every angle. Call 859-687-2004 today or visit them at novainsuranceGroup.com. Nova Insurance, securing your future one policy at a time. Now, today's episode. Welcome back to another episode of the Keys to the Commonwealth podcast. I am extremely honored to have our guest on today to talk about something that has been a huge asset for me as far as the industry that he's in, as I've expanded and gotten into the real estate investment game, so to speak. So excited about some topics that you may not have known about or really know how people doing this thing out here called real estate investing or flipping, etc. So without further ado, I want to introduce Jon Hayes to the podcast. Welcome to the show, my man.
Yeah, appreciate you having us, man. Excited to be here.
Yeah, not the first guest from the Louisville area, but we're definitely not opposed to having people from all over the state over here to the podcast, and I appreciate you making the time to come over this way. So, like we do with every episode, we jump into the DeLorean and say hop back and tell us, who are you with, how did you get, and then your story about how you got there.
So I am 40 years old, and I have been in nothing but the real estate arena since I was really 19, full on.
Yeah.
So dating all the way back from the very beginning until now, I have been in the trenches building my real estate portfolio as hard as I possibly can. And I feel like in a lot of ways, we're just getting started. That has led me, as I have always said, I'm not the man, but I sit at the foot of the man. So
Okay.
I've had a lot of good fortune at having exposure to men that have built real businesses. And with that has came not always what to do, but what not to do.
Okay.
And so where that's led me to today and how we get here is we have not transitioned. We are still heavily involved in brokering real estate,
Okay.
but we are lending private money. And so that is that's kind of where we've gotten to, but where we come from is building real estate portfolios, selling folks property, and helping people do every angle of that. So that's molded us to be in a real good position to where we're not just finance guys that are sitting back and been playing the bank. We really are guys that can sit back and say, hey, what's next for you? And how do we fund it to get you there?
Define we for us here.
So on a day-to-day, we're getting phone calls from an array of areas, Lexington being one of them, where guys will call in and they're trying to figure out, I mean, they may even be just ground up startup, they're trying to figure out, how do I get into this real estate stuff? I keep hearing about people getting private money and hard money and then going and doing some DSCR loan and never using our own money. And so that's kind of where we come into play, is we are helping these guys not just connect it and get funded, but how to put their whole picture together.
Yeah.
And how to do it in a way where some guys, people all the time will get caught up in, how many doors do you have? How many doors do you have? Well, I know a guy that's got 5 doors that are probably more valuable and better assets than 10 other guys that have 40.
Yeah.
And so whatever it is that people are wanting to build, if they can kind of spell out what their dreams are, and then they have to check out on paper, we can help put a plan in motion to get them there.
And what's the website again for this?
FlippinLoan.com.
FLIPPIN.
Right.
Loan.com.
Loan.com.
That's right. And we've been kind of gotten to know each other a little bit recently in that sense. And, from my story and background, as far as anybody that's listened before since the beginning, it was that whole scenario where you jump in, you're like, well, here's a good opportunity, but I don't have the money for it, really, is where it kind of usually starts, right?
Right.
But it is a good opportunity. And so that was one of our first things. I mean, out the gate was kind of, you got the hard money or private money type of things out there. And most people just don't know where to find it, or what kind of the rules of engagement are, what like I said, they've started learning about DSCR loan type of stuff, but that's a little bit of a different ball game,
right?
And a different path and so forth. So things like you all exist in that capacity to kind of, I guess short end of an example would be to kind of act like a bank in that sense for a period of time.
Absolutely.
And go from there. So Talk a little bit more about what you do as far as that goes. What things are we usually looking at for somebody who has not done any kind of private lending or something like that, as far as what that structure typically looks like, turnaround looks like, and so forth, or what you're doing every day.
So really one of the biggest things that I could stress in the early on is you've got to have something that you're bringing to the table to get connected with guys like us. So while we want to hear out, hey, I want to get started, and we're all ears and helpful in that regard, to really get there, you've got to either have some assets that you have real equity in, or maybe even have paid for. So like myself, when everything hit the fan, I was around before everything hit the fan in 2008. I looked like I was 12 years old, but I was running around doing some things.
Right.
And
I was unfortunately getting out in 2008.
Right.
It's a great time to get out of college.
Yeah, exactly. And so, as that day kind of shook out, when we moved past being able to go out and get 80-20 loans and essentially not using guys like us, you could go to the real bank and you could get 80% from one bank, 20% from another bank, and you could literally get into deals with no money from real banks. When everything hit the fan in 2008, everything changed. So there's always been guys that existed like us that are lending money privately. But nowadays, what really is possible and really one of the only paths, unless you've got a family member or somebody close to you that's operating out of an IRA that wants to give you money for cheap, finding guys like us is kind of how you get there when you're trying to scale early on. And so we basically want to see a 650 credit score or better. We want to see some form of dots that we can connect, whether it's some assets that you're holding, going back to the way I made it after the 2008 run, and I had to get more connected with guys like us. I had a couple assets that were paid for, so I could take that threeplex that was paid for, that I grinded away to get it paid for, and put it up as collateral.
Yeah.
And say, hey, will you give me $110,000? This place is worth $350. And I'm going to pay all the points and all the interest and everything at the end. Will you help me?
Yeah.
And so you can do it from that angle, or you can just have your job. And we always tell people, especially in the world of social media and everything else, don't get all hyped up and get too crazy early on. Keep your job, because that job on paper is what is going to allow you to connect with guys like me and us take comfort in giving you money.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that I think gets real easily lost as people get excited in this world that we're in. So I still, to this day, have to make money in my pay the bill way, and so that's something to always keep in mind early on. Don't quit your job.
Yeah. That was never playing for me and my business partner on that side. And like I said, it's been a huge asset for us to be able to, like you said, grow early on in a quicker way when you don't necessarily have as much to be able to do so. Right. And so forth. So it's been a great relationship I think we are on our probably fifth flip right now that's hitting the market. Just hit the market this past week and so forth. Because, the flip and hold side of things was part of the game for a long time, but it's just, as it is right now, the rates where they are, it's just been hard to find enough equity to add to a property where the rents are and so forth to make it work. As far as when you don't have the cash to put in, where, early on we were trying to, and I'm sure you work with these people a lot too, where we didn't have the cash to put in. So therefore we were trying to put the equity we could gain in the property as the down payment for the property when we go and take it over to a traditional, 5-year ARM type of commercial loan or something like that.
Right.
I mean, and so therefore we would end up with properties in the true BRRRR method where you really didn't at the end of the day have your own money in it at the end of the day type of scenario. But as you know, that's extremely hard to do, if not impossible to do right now. But again, there's all these people out there, and you are one of them, and working a lot with people and real estate investors from Northern Kentucky to Louisville to Lexington and so forth. And I think you all, and maybe talk about that recently in the Central Kentucky, kind of started focusing more on not realizing the market was a good opportunity here that maybe than you initially began. I think.
Yeah, absolutely. We go to arenas outside of Louisville on a regular basis, and really until end of last year, we're walking around and kind of skipping right over some of the things that are right in front of our faces. And so E-Town's growing, Campbellsville, places like that we've done deals this year. And Lexington is just the absolute obvious one that what I have been encouraged by more and more lately is I'm running into guys like yourself and some of your guys that you deal with that man, there's a young, new force brewing right here in Lexington. And I feel like there's, to a degree, a changing of the guard. You know, a lot of the folks that have, you know, planted the seed and the tree has grown. Now we're getting some age on us to where we can recognize the opportunities that are right in front of our faces. And so we've got a lot of interest right here in Lexington, and we're right on the cusp of starting to bust wide open, I think, right here, for sure.
Yeah, and you used, obviously, examples of podcasts like Bigger Pockets and so forth out there. We were talking earlier and so forth, which was, you know, that was my whole dream when I first started the podcast, was like, well, let's just start a local version of that at this point. And that's where, obviously, this journey started, and it's been a huge thing for me to kind of just learn, getting knowledge from, you know, guys like you and so forth, having them on the show and just like, hey, teach me this thing. Or I'm eager to learn, eager and hungry to figure this thing out, because if other people are doing it, why can't I do it, type of scenario. So like, as you know, we went from, you know, 0 to 19 doors in 18 months. Obviously, gone to more flips at this point with the market the way it's at. But it's been a great asset for us. So, again, back to maybe someone who hasn't done hard money, private money, et cetera, you know, what are typically some of those rules as far as what they expect, as far as once you're past kind of looking at the background and credit scores, you know, you having some tangible asset to kind of show as collateral, which is par for the course for anything when you're getting a loan. What's those next steps, is what that looks like between points and hold time, different things like that usually run in that space. So
we recently started doing no minimum use of the money, and so you can use us for a day, you can use us for a year. You want to be out of our pocket as quickly as you can be, because none of us in the private money space are cheap. So rates today, to give you a ballpark, you're going to see anything from 10% all the way up to 16%. In some form of points, 2 points, 1 point, point and a half. Some guys will just call a flat fee out. Everybody has a way of dressing it up a little bit different, and they're all going to be in that, on average, 10 to 14% range is what you're going to see most of. But we want to see, you know, we'd like to see in every deal that we do a 10% down payment is what we would like to see. You've got some skin in the game.
We're talking 10% of the
10% of the
purchase price.
10% of the purchase, and then we will fund your rehab money 100%. We break that up into draws. So you come to the closing, you get your first draw. You complete 20% of work. You send pictures to us on your cell phone through our portal. We look at that. We ACH direct deposit the next draw the very next morning. So everything's very straightforward. It's interest only on your payments. Very easy to figure out. We can get deal specific. There's a lot of guys out there that do different things than what we do. We are traditionally chasing single families and 4 units and less. But we're always doing something that I say we don't do. You know,
when it's a good deal, it's a good deal.
Yeah, I mean, last week we approved a $2.2 million complete renovation of a 40-something unit apartment building. And that didn't come to fruition because she didn't get an acceptance. But we approved that buyer to do that deal because specific to her, everything was extremely impressive on paper. She had done these before. She knew what she was doing. She had some real assets that we could tie ourselves to. We felt good about it. The other big thing about that was, for us, is the apartment building was vacant. That was a lot more attractive than the one that is not, because when you're working around all those things, these cities have their rules, and everything's a little bit different depending on where you are compared to what you're used to. And this one was not in Louisville. So, you know, I'm
trying to wrap my head around a 40-unit apartment that was completely vacant. That seems
so this girl is one of the most impressive people. One of the most impressive people that I've came in contact with this year, and I made sure to tell her that. 29 years old.
Wow.
29 years old. Last year, in one calendar year, one single year, she completed this, a 66-unit by herself with her husband, 66-unit apartment, full-scale rebuild. So a brick structure, good buildings. But 66 units, I think it was, total, by herself, her and her husband. Now, financially sound, very sharp people, very sharp people. That had done very well for themselves too. Now, they weren't walking around with $20 million in the bank, or they'd have never been calling me in the first place. But they had real money in the bank. They had real assets that were paid for. They've done some very, very creative and real things to get themselves where they have gotten themselves in 29 years of life. Impressive. I mean, very impressive. And so when we run into people, we always want to say, hey, let's listen to what you've got and let's hear it out. So Yeah, we're mostly after single families, 4 units and down, but you can get our attention if everything makes sense. But let me give you an example of like, okay, that's an extreme in a big way. You know, that's not me walking through the door at 29 years old.
Right.
So an extreme total difference. Guy that I had on the phone last night, and I kept him on the phone for an hour. He's not done a single deal.
Okay.
From Philadelphia, good dude. I just connected with him right when I talked to him. I met him at an event. We probably had, 40 to probably 60 something people at a lunch the other day.
Yeah.
Where I was able to grab the microphone and shout out my thing for a couple of seconds. And and so with that always ends up coming some guys coming and connecting with me toward the end, because I'm a guy, man, that I feel like I can connect with the younger crowd, but I can also connect with the older crowd too. I'm at that perfect age, and my experience is real. So the guys that like are mostly doing what I'm doing, for the most part, man, they're a little older and they've got a lot of knowledge and they bring something to the table too. But if I can get in a room and people can feel that what I'm talking about is actually what I've done, I connect with them in a real way. So this guy comes up to me and they'll typically just tell me everything. Comes up to me, man, I'd love to connect with you. He calls me yesterday. We stay on the phone for an hour, and he's essentially telling me, I'm listening to podcasts. I'm doing this. I'm going to every meetup. I'm doing everything that I can. How many deals have you done? None. At some point, man, the phone's got to start ringing for you. You can't always just be checking in with guys like me. You need to do this too.
Yeah.
You need to listen to these podcasts, because I can tell you one after another, after another, after another that didn't have any kind of mentor. And I'm telling you right now, they're listening to stuff like this. They're picking up the pieces they need to from each one, and they're applying it. Yeah. Those people exist today. That wasn't a thing for my grandpa's day or my dad's day.
Yeah.
All right. So those things are happening and they're important, and you need to be paying attention for sure. But at the same time, as you're getting there, you got to get the phone ringing. So I don't care if you're working another full-time job. So he's thinking, all these big ideas that he's seeing on the internet and he's listening to. And I say, man, listen, get on Vistaprint.com. I have no stock in Vistaprint.com. I'm not selling you on anything. This isn't even to benefit me. This is to benefit you. Get you some cards made and put your name on them, put your email at the bottom, and put your phone number on there, obviously. And put on there in bold the thing that they see most: cash real estate buyer. That's it. Well, John, I ain't got the cash. I haven't seen the first thing of you on paper. I don't know that you'll qualify. But if you go out here and you find a deal through some wholesaler or somebody involved in the arenas that you are already attending, and you're not coming to them saying, hey, I don't know anything. Yeah. You're coming to them and handing them a card, and you're saying, I buy houses for cash. Do you think if you don't come to someone like me in that room and you've got a deal in hand with an accepted contract, that somebody's not going to partner right up with you and give you some form of the cash that you need to make that deal happen? So there's a place that everybody can plug in within this real estate arena. And so if you're kind of tagging along with guys that do what I do, most of the areas that I'm going to show up to and most of the things that I'm going to be a part of, my thing is I'm needing to put money on the street. So I'm not showing up just for the heck of it. Anything that you see, and I'm an open book. Anything I'm showing up to and doing, tag along, and I'm in a lot of different arenas. And so same thing applies right here. I'm coming here for these very reasons. We're doing deals. You're doing deals. I'm doing deals.
Back to that point of with them, it's like eventually, one thing I learned was eventually you got to jump out, get out of the boat.
You got to do something.
You got to, and there's a lot of things you will never learn until you have stepped out of the boat and gotten your feet wet and down into the dirt and mud and so forth. So a lot of value to that, and it's cool to kind of see people that you see it more than anybody else, I'm sure, from both sides of the book there.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. So as far as connecting with you all, I mean, what's the best places to kind of connect with you?
My cell phone is 502-658-7418. Email is john.flippinloan@gmail.com, and that's JON.FLIPPIN loan@gmail.com. Those are the easiest ways to get to me directly.
Yeah. And like I said, a lot of people don't know where to even start or who to talk to or how to find, because, as you know, in this business, some people put themselves out there, they don't really work with hardly anybody. They're just trying to, but then there's a lot of others where it's like they only work with more private clients and kind of go from there. So that being said, it's good people to have in your back pocket, people you talk to, and you guys are doing it the right way, it seems like, and excited to kind of work with you also
absolutely
for the future there even more. Don't want to take any more of too much of your time here, but obviously, it is what it is as far as private hard money lending. And, there's not like a sexy bow to kind of put on it. It is what it is, and people understand the value of it in the short term, and obviously it's nothing for people long term, but Appreciate you coming on this way, giving us your 2 bits, advice, and so forth. Anything you have in passing before we kind of let you go?
Just echoing more of what we're talking about here, man. If you're thinking about getting into real estate, stop thinking about it and do it.
Yeah.
You know, jump right in. One of the things, another little low hanging piece of fruit along the line with grab that card and have one of those made, if nothing else. Connect with realtors, man. If you connect with these realtors in your area and you tell them what it is that you're after, your phone will ring.
Yeah.
You know, realtors love to work with people that can make things simple.
Yeah.
So we can get you the cash very simply. If they know what it is that you're after and you stay connected with enough of them, you will find deals. So don't turn a blind eye to the MLS and realtors. That's a big key that I feel like once people start getting into real estate investing, they shut that part of their mind off. And don't do that, because a lot of people are shutting their mind off to that.
Yeah.
Connect with these realtors that are getting after it, man. A lot of them have a lot to offer, a lot more than you would think. And you make yourself a cash buyer known to them, you'll find some deals.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
John, appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
And we'll see you on the next week's episode of Keys to the Commonwealth podcast. Appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
To learn more about this podcast, visit our page at keystothecommonwealth.com. To connect with Landry regarding insuring your investment portfolio, email Landry at novainsuranceGroup.com or call 859-687-2004.